Hello, my name is Jeremy Burke and I work at King's College London. There I teach on the PGCE Mathematics. Prior to that I was a mathematics teacher in 4 London schools, including being a head of mathematics department and later a senior leader. Today I'm going to talk about Assessment for Learning, AFL, and Assessing Pupils' Progress, APP. And I want to talk about it in terms of sustaining classroom dialogue, in terms of pupil self-assessment, and in terms of monitoring pupils' progress. Assessment is a crucial part of teaching. It's where, as a teacher, you determine whether or not the student has engaged with the practice, has got sufficient control over the practice for the purposes for which you are teaching. So we cannot teach without assessment. We need to be making judgments continuously about how our students are progressing in what we are teaching. Now, assessment itself means a measurement of something. It's an evaluation. We are making a decision about how good a person's practice is in terms of what we are trying to teach. In that case, it is necessary for us to be clear about what it is to be assessed. So we are concerned with the mathematics they are learning. We are not particularly concerned with their deportment or their style of dress, for example, which may be part of a school rule, but is not necessarily part of what we are looking at in terms of their acquisition of mathematics. We need to consider the method of our measurement. So we are trying to gain some or make some judgment about how well pupils are doing. How are we going to do that? And we also need to decide on what use the assessment is to be put. I want to mention 2 particular policy items that are current in teaching. Firstly, assessment for learning. Now, the national strategies have defined this as assessment for learning is a natural, integral and essential part of effective learning and teaching, and is a key element of personalised learning. Teachers and children continually reflect on how learning is progressing, see where improvements can be made, and identify the next steps to take. So in other words, they are saying that assessment is a continuous, that these judgments are being made. It's part of a dialogue that needs to be developed between the teacher and the student in order that the teacher can guide their progress, and indeed that a teacher can guide progress differentially amongst the students in the class. Another element of policy at the moment is called APP, Assessing Pupils' Progress. Now, according to the QCDA, APP helps teachers fine-tune their understanding of learners' needs and tailor planning and teaching. They say that teachers can use diagnostic information about strengths and weaknesses to improve teaching, learning and pupils' progress. That teachers can make reliable judgments related to national standards drawing on a range of evidence, and that teachers can track pupils' progress. I want to argue that there is a marked difference between these 2 aspects of assessment. And so I want to look at assessment for learning contrasted with APP. Assessment for learning focuses overtly on pupils' progress through providing guiding feedback according to individuals' needs. So the development of a dialogue with an individual student or with a group of students will lead to a response that gives them good guidance for where they might move to next. It's about their learning and about their next steps. That judgment will be made in terms of the narrative of the sequence that you have designed, and that judgment will be made based on the students that you actually have in front of you. So it's very localized, it's about the class that you're teaching. APP, on the other hand, is concerned with external comparisons against national standards and providing tracking data. Neither of these forms of assessment make reference back to pedagogic strategy. So although on the one hand we're concerned with giving pupils guidance, and although on the other we are concerned with comparison against external benchmarks, neither of these relate specifically to the style or the mode, the process we are using to teach our topic. I wish to turn now to activity 1, and I'm going to ask you to consider the following. Assessment needs to be managed. It needs to be built into lesson plans. And the kind of things that you need to consider are: how will you know whether pupils understand what is going on each lesson? And how will you know whether pupils are making progress towards understanding the whole topic? Now, these are two different things. Understanding what goes on each lesson requires you to check with some pupils possibly how they are understanding the particularities of the lesson. In terms of progress towards understanding the whole topic, then you might want to ask a more detailed question or give some kind of activity where pupils can demonstrate what they understand and how they make connections across the topic. So I'm suggesting now that you choose a topic that you're going to teach or a topic that you've taught recently, and how you would set up assessments for individual lessons and an assessment to cover the topic. Now, while you're doing that, you might very well consider what you're going to do with the results of that assessment. So if you ask one or two pupils during the course of a lesson what they understand about what you've been teaching, then if they say they understand it clearly and they can demonstrate that, what are you going to do? If they say they don't understand it, then what are you going to do? For either outcome, you need to decide what your follow-up step is going to be. You need to consider the kind of response you're going to give to pupils' presentation of their work. So you might answer a question with a question, or you might give a detailed explanation, or you might give a correction, or you might simply give a mark. If you answer a question with a question, then we are attempting to keep pupils puzzling. So rather than simply give them an answer, we are asking them to continue to keep on thinking about the topic that they are engaging with. So if we have given them a problem to explore, then giving an answer closes down that exploration. To sustain the inquiry, we need to respond with questions of the form: what happens if you do this? What if not? What have you considered? How do you know? How can you be certain that you are correct? So by asking those kind of questions, that continues the inquiry on the part of the pupils. During the course of each lesson, you will wish to assess whether pupils are understanding that which you're presenting. You will want to find out whether they are thinking on the right lines or what they don't understand. Both of these are important for you to know whether to progress or whether you should return and go over things that they don't understand. If pupils don't understand, then what are you going to do about it? You can't exactly put them down a set. You have to decide what you're going to do, how you're going to change your teaching, change your explanations in order that they do understand. If we give a mark, and this is a fairly common practice, then this is a kind of issue that was picked up by Black and William in their booklet Inside the Black Box, as a common practice which gives little information back to the pupil. For example, if someone has marked your work and they give you 6 out of 10, then what does that tell you to do? Now, pupils, of course, might worry at that mark. They might say, I've only got 6 out of 10, I need to get more. So they might very well review their work. Or they might think, oh, I'm not very good, and they might give up. You have to decide whether or not you giving that response to the pupil will have the effect that you want. So consider the effect of the feedback that you give to pupils. Now let's turn to assessment activity 2. And here, if you look at the test that was set for a pupil, you might ask these questions. What is the test aiming to measure? Is this test a good way of getting at this? And what will pupils' results tell you? Now turn and look at the completed test. What feedback will you give to this pupil? Now you may just want to look at 1 or 2 examples rather than all of them, but nevertheless consider how it is you will feedback to the pupil that has given the answer to which you're looking. So in conclusion, I wish to go over a number of points that we've made about assessment. Firstly, make assessment work for you. You want to make it so that it helps give useful guidance to your pupils. You need to build in assessment opportunities into your lesson plans so that assessment isn't random, but you are in control of it. Use sampling techniques. Choose a good pupil or a weaker pupil and talk to them at some length for 2 or 3 minutes about their work and what they've been doing. Use this to give yourself a judgment about whether or not pupils are understanding what's going on in the current lesson and how this connects with your previous lessons. Think about how you respond to pupils. You can recommend progression when they can do it, and reflection when they can't. Focus on pupils making progress and gaining understanding. So we are not interested so much in what they can't do, but what they can do and what they need to do in order to move on. Try to maintain pupils' engagement with a problem by not closing it down. So ask what-if questions, or ask how they know how they work things out correctly. And finally, use a variety of methods to inform yourself about pupils' understanding and about their progress. I would like to thank you for watching this Starting Out webinar on assessment.